our agents in the productivity coaching program to get to know our top agents and all about how
Bill, I can't hear you.
Yeah, Bill, I think you're having a connection issue. And your video is frozen.
We can't hear you, Bill. Still can't hear you.
I don't think he can hear us either.
All right, how about now? How about
Yay.
now? Okay, gosh, let me apologize again for all this connection issue. Thank you guys for being patient. We've had an exciting day in productivity coaching. We have made an additional hire, and now we have an assistant productivity coach. We are at 77 agents from all different types of backgrounds and experience levels and production levels, and we're getting some great momentum to start 2021. I want to continue the success series, which we've been doing for about 7 or 8 months, and this is an opportunity for us to kind of allow a top producer to come into the group, introduce themselves, help share a little bit about their background and their business, and if they have any niches in particular that they love to focus on, or that they have been particularly helpful as they're growing their business. And of course, for the members of our group to get an opportunity to hear the stories and maybe do some Q&A. This is a little bit different of a interview, if you will. A lot of the people that I have had the honor of bringing into the success series are people that I've had years-long relationships with. And Paige and I have actually kind of just met. So Paige currently serves on the Agent Leadership Council. I'm going to allow you to give a little bit more of your background with how long you've been in the business and how long you were at KW. I believe you most recently came from, which office was it that you most recently came from?
It was another Keller Williams. It was Atlanta Perimeter. So I was with the Rawls Group.
Okay, perfect. So coming from the Dunwoody office, and lots of excitement around you coming to the office. And I love seeing somebody come in and just jump right into leadership and start sharing online and just helping all of our agents. And this is a good kind of cross section of some of your new colleagues, some of the people that can get help from you and you can help them. So I'm going to give the baton to Paige for a second. What I'd love to do, Paige, is if you could maybe start by just giving us a little bit of background about your professional background or personal background, whatever you'd like to share, kind of how you ended up in Keller Williams and in Roswell. And then I'm going to ask you a couple questions along the way. And then I'd like for you to take a little time to share about contract to close, which is one of the topics you wanted to cover today, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, cool. So, hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here. Bill, thanks again. So I'm currently in my 6th year. I'm actually just starting my 6th year in real estate. I absolutely love it. I came from a background where I'm 3rd generation agent. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt, they're all in real estate as well. So in my family, if you're not a realtor, you're an engineer. So I said growing up, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be an engineer. I don't have that math mind. I'm not going to be a realtor either. I'm going to go to school for education and teaching. So I started for early childhood education. I was nannying all the way through. And I really admire teachers because what I found is I don't want to do that. So I changed my major to English. And changing my major so late in the game, what I found is that a lot of my peers that were going to school for English were graduating much sooner than I was, and they were all going into that education path. So rather than also going into education, I talked to my family and they're like, you should get your real estate license. So of course I go and I get my real estate license and I told them I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to like it. And I fell in love with it very, very quickly. So immediately I started with Berkshire Hathaway, and that was probably the first mistake that I made, was not joining a incredible coaching and training and people that wanted to help you along the way. So I took from that as much as I could. I had a really great first year. I sold 6 homes, which, again, if I was with a better firm, I probably could have done much more. But moved from there to, my second big mistake, which was a boutique firm, which again, I was a big fish in a small pond. There was no education or training. And from there, I realized I really need something where I can help give back to newer agents, but I can grow and learn as well. So that was my branch into Keller Williams. And then when I moved to Keller Williams, my business doubled and has continued to double every year since.
Wow. So this last year, what type of production do you have?
I did 30 homes and $10 million in transactions.
Wow. And that was that a loan, or did you have admin support or a buyer's agent, showing agent, anything like that?
That's 100% by myself. I'm an independent agent, but Victoria Starks, I just brought her on as a showing assistant, and she's been phenomenal.
And who was that again?
Oh, Victoria. She's in this group as well.
Oh, okay. You've been breaking up a tiny bit. So yeah, I love Victoria. She just won $1,000 from participating in family reunion.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Did she tell you that? Yeah.
No, that's wonderful.
Well, I tell you, I can tell you from experience, 30 units by yourself and $10 million in production is quite a feat. You do need some help. I'm glad you got it.
Yeah.
So,
for the year, 10 transactions pending or closed, which is about 3 to 4 million.
That's where you're at right now?
Currently today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So talk to us a little bit about how did you build your business in the first place, right? Did you have a big sphere when you got into the business? What of the Keller Williams education did you kind of...
Frozen.
Oh my gosh, it's killing me today. Can you hear me now? No?
I can hear you, Bill.
Okay. What was the first kind of education that you really started to embrace in terms of Keller Williams? And what did you do at the very beginning when you kind of had your license and you sit down at your desk for the first time and you're like, now what, right? How did you build your business? Because we got a bunch of people in the group right now. The majority of them are, let's just say outside of Candace, of course, about a year or less in the business. And they're dealing with the same obstacles that all new agents deal with, which is, I got to learn a lot, but I also got to find people to serve. So what were some of your primary strategies when you were growing your business?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think there's a lot of amazing free resources out there. Coaching is obviously the first thing that I did when I came to Keller Williams, and it was the reason that I came to Keller Williams. I was at the Tom Ferry program, and I was spending $1,200 a month for 2 30-minute coachings a month. So there are a lot of really incredible free coaching programs out there on YouTube. So when I would be on the treadmill, when I would be driving, when I would be walking my dog, whatever I was doing, I always had some sort of coaching in my ear, just playing in the background, usually Tom Ferry, maybe Bill Pipes. Again, he has years worth of content on YouTube for free. So joining Keller Williams was incredible, and they really helped to broaden my spirit, my mindset of there are a lot of free things out there that I can do that aren't buying leads. So I try to pick 3 different pillars to help build my business on. So the first one was open houses. Those are free leads that are walking in the door every single weekend, and you can do 3 open houses a weekend. So that was absolutely phenomenal. And of course, having everybody sign in. I had an iPad, and there's an open house app. I think I paid maybe $20 for it, and it has been worth its weight in gold. It won't let you go to the next page or hit submit until after everybody has filled out their information. So their phone number, their email, when are you looking to buy and sell, what's your first and last name? And I put a sign on the front door that says, thanks so much for coming to my open house. Seller requires all guests must sign in. So that's been really incredible. And again, 3 leads, right? So I also did Zillow. I was one of those people that eventually signed up with them. I still use them, but I'm trying to branch away from that, especially with their new program. It's just very expensive. And then referral basis. So how growing my sphere. Most of my sphere was grown from those open house leads. When I was going through my licensing, I was 21. When I got my license, I was 22. A lot of my friends, if they were done with college, certainly weren't buying homes. And, you know, I'm not even old enough to rent a car, and I'm trying to get people to buy and sell with me. So open houses were, I cannot speak highly enough of them. Circle prospecting, not just cold calling for sale by owners and expires, everyone is, but actually calling to an area has been phenomenal too. And, you know, sometimes you get that person on the line and they're like, I'm on the do not call list. What are you doing? And then other times you get that person on the line that says, oh my God, it's a sign. Thank you so much for calling me. I've been thinking about selling and here you are. That's amazing. Can you come tomorrow? So circle prospecting, building my sphere, open houses, and, you know, Zillow.
I love that. What's a typical day look like for you, Paige? How do you I mean, 30 units, even with a showing agent, as far as I'm concerned, is like, woo, to the max. Like, how do you structure your day and make sure that you have enough time to service all the pendings you got, and that you don't lose sight of the fact that you got to find the guy who's going to buy or sell in the summertime too?
Right, absolutely. So, you know, it's all a pipeline play. And for me, so I keep all of my business. Everybody does things differently, and a CRM only works as well as you're going to use it. And so what I found is that I had a very expensive CRM that I wasn't using. I found Command to be a little bit complicated for what I'm trying to do, because most of my business I'm on the go, so I'm working from my phone. So I literally keep my entire business in a note on my phone. And it says where I am so far for the year, my business that I'm currently working, who's active and under contract, different contacts that I've made, what price point they're at the bottom of that, where I'm at. So how far into the business am I approaching my goal? And I keep my goal at the top of my notes. I look at it multiple times a day. So
Wait,
from a daily perspective,
don't want to cut you off. You cut out for just 1 second. Did you say you look at your goals every day?
every single day, multiple times a day. Yeah.
I love that. What else were you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah. So, and that same note, if you keep scrolling, it has 2020, and you keep scrolling and it has 2019, and you keep going and it has every year in my business. So if I'm like, what did I do last year? I can scroll down and see who bought and sold and when. It's just in a note on my iPhone. It's free. And it syncs to all my devices.
Man, I got so much to say on that. You know, I when I was, you know, in production, it was prior to Command, right? And so we had to, you know, use systems like that, right? Yet my biggest takeaway from listening to you is we don't have to make it all that complicated, right? We don't have to make it all that complicated. This business is actually quite simple.
Yeah,
It's
and
finding the prospects, servicing the prospects, communicating with the prospects. That's it. What where do you see yourself like in a couple of years? Wait. I want to make sure I get a little bit more information before you answer that question. So outside of, you know, monitoring your kind of task list, how do you manage your time though?
So time blocking, everything is in my calendar. You know, it's a bold rule. If it's not your calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So everything's in my calendar. And honestly, right now I'm booking next week. So if I'm unavailable, I've got Victoria, I've got Daniel, I've got 2 buyer's assistants who are going to go out on my behalf to show homes. I'm going to follow up with them afterwards. What'd you think of the house? How'd you like it? What were some positives and negatives? What would you want to see in the next home that I pull for you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you need to move in tomorrow, 1 being you can't believe you spent your time going out there to look at it, where would you rate this one? And if it's a 7, what could I do to make it a 10 for you? Is it a matter of painting, or did you hate the lot? If you hated the lot, there's nothing I can do. But if the living room is red, we can bring a painter out and get a quote. So trying to gauge what people think about it too when they're walking through the home. But as far as scheduling time, absolutely time blocking and making sure that I'm flexible and amenable to my client's schedule as much as possible. And if I've got a personal appointment, usually I don't have kids, I don't have pets, I don't have a husband. So I usually move my schedule around to fit my clients.
Okay, cool. So do you lead generate every single day?
I do, but it may not look the way you would think it would. It's not always cold calling. Sometimes it's just a matter of going to coffee with a friend. And then at some point it comes back to real estate. And it's like, hey, did you know that the house down the street from you just sold? How crazy is that? How much do you think your home is worth? Do you want me to pull those comps for you? I'd be happy to send them to you just as a friend. Always coming from a place of caring and not coming from a place of being salesy, and following the golden rule, putting yourself in the other person's shoes. There's something called commission breath. So if you're trying to prospect in a way that you're money forward instead of coming from a position of help and love and being a servant to those people that you're talking to, they're going to send it and work with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want people to think that if you're not cold calling people with a headset on and a dialer, you're not lead generating, right? The purpose of lead generation is to find relationships, deepen relationships, and potentially, solve problems, right? And get appointments. So whether you're going on coffee dates with your friends or, playing golf, if whatever you're doing is getting you the appointments, that's lead gen, right? It sounded like, Paige, you had a couple of scripts that you were using. What is your take on scripts?
Yeah, so I love them. I think that you can find a great script online and then adjust it and tweak it to fit your personal style. Obviously, if you're reading something and you've called AT&T or Comcast before, they're on a script, but
Right.
you take something like that that's a little stale and you add your personal touch to it, it's going to seem like it's much more personal to that person. And they're going to know that you are coming from a place of caring and that you're a professional in the field, you know what you're doing.
Right. And you can have scripts in play and having internalized those scripts without sounding salesy, without it sounding like you have commission breath.
Absolutely, 100%. And of course, asking questions along the way. It's like going on a date. If you talk to the other person, you let them talk more than you're talking, and you get to know them and you really dig into their pain point. You find out, why do you want to buy? Why do you want to sell? How can I best help you? You're going to come across as being less salesy and more a servant to them.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's what they want. They want an opportunity to be heard. They want an opportunity to share what they're struggling with. And then we come in as real estate agents and we solve their problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in a couple of years? What's your growth trajectory look like?
If I keep going, I'm kind of at a point where, and it's interesting that you asked that because I was talking to Aubrey about it not too long ago. And I'm at a point where I either should be building a team or consider something else. So I'm considering coaching and possibly transitioning into that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. This is all about building a great quality of life. So as you get more and more successful, a lot of times we identify, callings, so to speak, that we didn't know were important to us. And we sometimes look to buy back our time to some extent. And that's what you've done with hiring, showing help and, buyer's help and that kind of thing. If you were given I know you said around 30 minutes or so to give your part of the presentation. So I'm going to ask you just one more question. I think open it up for a minute or two for Q&A and then give you an opportunity to chat if that's okay. So you're in front of a handful of primarily new agents, right? What advice do you have for them? Think back to 5 or 6 years ago and think about how you were feeling and how you felt overwhelmed and how your pipeline wasn't as full as you wish it was. Give us some coaching or give us some advice. What would you do?
Yeah, so I think the biggest mistake that people make, and the failure rate in real estate is what, like 80%, right?
It's actually higher than that. The last time I heard, 10% of newly licensees will be in the business 1 year later, and 10% of those will be in the business 3 years later.
Right. And so I think that the challenge that most people have, and the reason that number is so high, is because we're in a world now where people want instant gratification. And you look at your buyers and your sellers, and they certainly want instant gratification, right? But as an agent, it's all pipeline play, and you have to learn to be really patient with yourself. You work so hard to get your license. You work so hard to go through those training courses. You work so hard to get where you are now and figure out that you want to be with Keller Williams and make this life decision to become a real estate agent. So it's important to be patient with yourself when you're building your pipeline. And if things aren't moving as quickly as you want them to, continue to stick with it instead of giving up and going into a different field or thinking, man, a 9 to 5 would be easier. Because a 9 to 5 probably would be easier, but you probably wouldn't be as happy, right? So
That's well said.
and staying with it, and truly like being confident in yourself too, and knowing that your clients, I think the biggest problem that I had when I was coming in was making those calls to my clients. Like, oh man, I just texted them yesterday. I just called them 2 days ago. If they want me, they'll come to me. That's not the case. How often do you pick up the phone and you finally get someone on the line after 20 times that you called them, and they're like, oh, I've been meaning to call you. I'm so glad you answered.
And they weren't mad at you, or they weren't ghosting you. They just were busy.
They're just busy. Everyone's so busy, and especially with kids working, school from home and everyone doing work from home, there's not a lot of time. So making sure that you keep in mind too, people are happy to hear from me. I'm here to help them, and they're happy to have me. So I would say the confidence level is extremely important for new agents.
I love that. Okay, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Paige?
I do.
All right.
Hi, Paige.
Hey, Corey.
I remember you were on my team for the 36-12-3, and I was blown away by your numbers. You were always saying, like, we had to report our numbers, and you would say, I went on 5 appointments and I got 4 listings. I was like, what the hell? Who is this lady? And so it's really nice to meet you, to see you, and thank you for offering all of your knowledge. And it sounds like, by the way, you're maybe on your way to getting back into that teaching that you talked about so long ago. So that's pretty cool. It's coming full circle. So I have, those are just some observations, and I'm just wondering, how do you go about getting all those appointments and those listings? Do you have like paid ads for lead gen? Do you have concierge service or social media strategy? What are your systems for all of those? And then how do you said you've got, was it 2 buyer's agents and an assistant? So like, how do you manage everything?
Yeah. So I don't have buyer's agents yet. I have buyer's assistants. So they'll go out on my behalf. I'm very buyer heavy. Most of my business is buyers, not sellers, which in this market is really tough. We're finding ourselves, the other day I was one of 90 offers, 90. So it's a tough market for buyers right now. We were cash, we can close tomorrow, which is not realistic, but let's get under contract, right? And we're $40,000 over asking, and we were still beat out. So it's crazy, but to answer your question, how do I manage it and how do I lead generate? Like I said before, the structures that I used in the very beginning, I still use today. So the only difference now is that my sphere is bigger and that I'm more confident. I'm more confident in my scripts. And I say scripts, but really I regurgitate the same thing every day. Like, contract to close process doesn't change. It is what it is. We're in Georgia. The buyer's process, it's the same thing every time I explain it. So working open houses, working cold calling to a circle dialer, working my sphere. Now I work my sphere very heavily with pop buys. I work my sphere very heavily going to dinner and client appreciation events. And I've always done those, but now they're bigger. So before, my first client appreciation event, I had like 6 people. Now I've got like 60. So it's just, your business is going to grow with you. And that goes back to being patient and being confident. And when we were actually going through that course together, my fall market was really tough. I didn't have any closings for September, October, or November. And everything was falling through. I had a bunch of people that were under contract. They lost their job with COVID. I had a couple folks that were in forbearance, couldn't get financing. at a couple folks that, their parents died and they decided that it wasn't a good time for them to buy. So they're all on hold. They'll roll over to this year. Following up with them is key always. If you don't work with them, somebody else will. But that was like pent up demand and probably 4 months worth of business in December.
Yeah, didn't you have like 9 closings in December and make like 100 grand or something?
Yeah, 125.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, it was like 125 in December.
Okay, hang on. You made $125,000 in December
Yes, that's correct.
of when we're having a global pandemic?
So, but again, keep in mind too, right? That's like 4 months worth of business that got pushed to December. So you spread that out.
Okay, so you gotta pick up the page. 30 grand in a month is not enough. Did I freeze?
Oh, are you there? Yeah. Hey.
I mean, that's incredible. That's,
So
I mean,
my goal every month is to do $800,000 in transactions. You know what? That's actually what I think is a misconception with a lot of new agents, or something at least that I really struggled with in my first year. Was I came in Berkshire Hathaway and I'm like, I'm going to be a luxury agent. I'm going to sell all these $1 million homes because that's what all the Berkshire agents do. And what I found is that that's not my niche. I don't want to do that. I don't want to work with those clients. My best client is my first time home buyer or my first time home seller that's leaning on me, that trusts me, that's going to grow with me. Next year, they're going to sell that house and they're going to buy a $400,000 house.
Yep.
Then they're going to sell that one and buy an $800,000 house. Then their kids are going to buy with me. And then their parents are going to sell with me. So that's the kind of client that I really want. I don't want to be in the luxury sphere. And I think that a lot of people have that misconception of, I watch Selling Sunset and I want to be, sell multi-million-dollar homes.
right. You and I both drive up to the top of the mountain from different sides in our Porsche and like shake hands on a $4 million deal. And the next thing I go buy like $1,000 bathing suit. Like that never happens. Not in Atlanta, at least, right?
Yeah.
I just bought $1,000 bathing suit, Bill. I don't know what you're talking about.
Corey, great question. That was a great answer, Paige. Thank you. Who else has a thought or a question for Paige?
Paige, this is Candace. I have a question for you. How do you structure, how do you first get to know the market? What did you do for newer agents? And how do you keep up with what's happening? Do you have a system for that?
Awesome question. So at this point, I've got buyers everywhere. I know that when I was at Berkshire and I was first starting, what they wanted you to do was pick an area and stick to it and sell that area. And Candace, I'm everywhere. I sold a home in Locust Grove in December. I didn't even know that was a real thing. Like, that's a place in Georgia. There's a place called Locust Grove. I do a lot in West End, which is south of Atlanta. I do a lot in Lawrenceville and Tequila. I'm everywhere. If you look at my map, I live in Buckhead, and there's a little barren spot in ITP where, for whatever reason, my clients just aren't there. So I go wherever my clients are, and I'm fortunate in that they're all set up on those client portals. Every time a house hits the market, I get an email on it. So for the past several months, that's how I've been keeping up with the market. Every morning, I go into the note on my phone. I see who needs to get a property from me. And I see, you know what, even if there's a house that's not a perfect fit, I'll text my client and be like, hey, I want you to know the perfect house didn't list today. This is probably the closest fit. It may not be what you want, but I just want you to know I'm still working for you. And touching base that way. But the MLS has something that's, what is it called? Like the stats, like quick stats or something.
I think it's called Market Stats. Is that the thing where it says like how many new listings or how many pendings? Yeah. Market Watch. So I keep an eye on that every day. Right now, new listings are this big, pendings are like this big. So, obviously it's a seller's market, but if I didn't have buyers that I was going out with or sellers that I was going out with and looking at homes, I would just go and I would tour empty houses. And that's how I got to know the area. And if I could go with another agent to like a home inspection, I would do that. If another agent was going out looking at homes with their buyer, I would very quietly go with them. I'm like, I'm their assistant. And I just want to hear the jargon that they say. I want to watch how they walk through a house. And I tried to pick a top producer to do that with. it sounds like you have a very, very intentional approach to your business, right? You show up at the same time every day, you work a hard day, and if you're not actively with a client, you are prospecting to find one, or you're learning. Is that fair to say?
Married in the car, or he's in my AirPods, he's somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure that Donna, I believe you had a question or two. What was the open house app? Do you know that you used for registrations?
I think it's just literally called Open House. It looks like this.
And also a question about, oh, cool, thank you. All right. Could you share maybe an idea or two that you've done for client events and pop buys as well?
Oh man, my client appreciation event was so cool last year. So we did, and this is probably something that's a few years down the road, but we did a virtual wine tasting. So I partnered with a few restaurants who get their wine at a wholesale price. And I partnered with an event planner who put together this virtual Zoom call, and I delivered boxes of 3 bottles of wine to all of my clients, and we got on a call with the sommelier and as well as the vineyard owners for all 3 of those wines. And it was called Around the World, or around rosé, something catchy, like rosé and around the world in 3 days. I don't know.
So, how many people?
So that was really cool. When I first started, my client had a yoga studio because I had a lot of female clients and they were pretty young. So I partnered with the yoga studio. They did a free class for me and my clients. Afterwards, I had all my vendors. So my home inspection company, my oh my gosh, what am I thinking of? My closing attorney, sorry, Gannick, and a couple other people, my home warranty company, pitching some gift cards, some Amazon Alexas, and we did a raffle. For pot buys, potted plants are great. Mums in the fall are great. Whenever you're ordering anything in bulk, you can always negotiate the price. You guys are negotiators by trade, right? Being in real estate, there's nothing that you can't negotiate.
I agree. Okay, I want to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of time for you to share the topic of the day. I believe you wanted to talk about the contract to close process. So if we have a couple minutes at the end, we can do another question or two, but Paige, take it away. Tell us what you wanted to tell us about contract to close.
Awesome. Yeah, so I just want to go over this with you guys briefly, and I don't think it'll take too long, but it was something that I really struggled with explaining to my clients right when I would get them under contract. And it's the one thing that's going to keep coming up in your business where people are going to say to you, okay, I'm under contract, now what? What's the next step? So I write this offer, but then what? And I want to make sure that you guys are able to confidently explain that to your clients so that when you're going through the process with them, either as a buyer or as a seller, they have the realistic expectation up front of what is this going to look like. So typically, it's going to take 30 days, and you're going to tell your clients up front, this is a 30-day process. Once you get under contract, you're going to have 3 major milestones. It's going to be your due diligence period, your appraisal, and your financial contingency. So in a traditional market, you're going to have all 3 of these contingencies. Right now in the market that we're in, we're seeing people waive them. We're going to go through it as though it's a normal market, and you have the ability to have all 3 of these. So up front, your due diligence, and I always set the expectation to my clients, it's not very exciting. Like it's a little scary, right? You're paying someone to come in and to put together a book and a list of all the problems and defects that are going to be in your new home. So what we're going to be looking for are big issues, health and safety concerns. The one thing for my sellers that always deteriorates a contract, makes it fall through, and we end up back on the market is when I receive during due diligence a 2-page or a 3-page. Yesterday, I got a 45 bullet points of things that they wanted my seller to address or correct prior to closing. It was pretty much the whole report.
Yeah, unfortunately, you didn't get a chance to set expectations with that buyer, right?
That wasn't my buyer, it was my seller. And my seller There are ways to overcome that. Sometimes they were well over asking. And we had another contract before that had fallen through due to buyer financing. And so I'm like, Mr. Seller, this is unfortunate that obviously they didn't set the realistic expectation up front. As you and I have discussed, they should have come in with health and safety concerns, but because they want more and because they're so strong, let's give them some money towards their closing costs and call it a day. So when you're looking at this for a buyer, you should tell them you're going to get a lot of nitpicky stuff. This is a great opportunity to take this list, and on a rainy day when it's Saturday and you don't know what to do and the kids are at a friend's house, go through the list and honey-do list, punch some of the stuff out. But it's not going to be a determining factor of whether or not you should buy the house. The health and safety concerns, I have a foundation crack, I have a hole in my roof. These are things that perhaps you want to ask the seller to fix prior to closing or provide you with some closing costs so that once you do close, you have the ability to fix these, right?
Right.
Also your opportunity to get some people in for quotes. So if during your home inspection, the inspector's going around checking out the house, making sure everything looks good, and you realize, man, I really want it to get the living room that's red painted to a neutral color, and I really want it to have the Corian countertops replaced to a granite countertop. That's a really good time to have a contractor come in and quote that out. So you have the expectation, how much is it going to cost to renovate my kitchen to what I want? If you think in your head, my kitchen renovation is going to be $20,000, and after they close, the kitchen renovation ends up being $60,000, that's probably going to be upsetting. You're probably going to get a call from your buyer. So I would never quote anything out for them as far as, oh yeah, you can get hardwood floors for 20 grand. Always have a contractor do it. You can do it during due diligence.
Yep. Love that.
Always, yeah. So health and safety concerns, that's what you want to look at during due diligence. Your earnest money is going to be your good faith money. Your good faith money tells the seller, hey, I'm really serious about buying this house. I really want this home, but to show you, I'm going to put up 1% of the asking price or what we're under contract for in an escrow account. That 1% is going to go towards your closing costs or your down payment when you get to closing as a credit, right? So if on, let's say you're in due diligence, I don't know, Bill, I don't know, you're going to like this, but I tell all of my
the greatest thing, I before you even say it, like, your ideas are working, right? So we all have the ability to run our own business, right? You don't have to do it my way, neither do these people, right? So I bring on different voices for that exact reason.
Okay, because I think you're going to like this, but I tell all my buyers, hey, look, first step, let's get it under contract. If you even think I love this home, or if you're at a 9 out of 10 or higher, we need to write an offer on it. And if you're in between this one and another one, or let's say we're on day 7 of a 7-day due diligence and the neighbor's house lists and it's way better, let's go see it. Because you can terminate for any reason or no reason during your due diligence period and get your earnest money back. It's completely refundable. There's no penalty for that.
All right, so far I agree.
Okay, yeah. So even when I'm showing homes to a buyer that's under contract, I'm totally okay with that. I know a lot of agents, once they go under contract, we're under contract, we're married to this house. You're not. You're just dating. So once you are done with your due diligence period and that period's been lifted, those 2 exceptions are your financial contingency and your appraisal contingency. Your financial contingency, and you should tell all of your buyers up front, when we're going through this 30-day process, you're under contract to, hey, I'm closing. Even if it's an hour before closing, it doesn't matter. You're not going to do anything that's going to impact your credit. You're not going to do anything that's going to impact your debt to income ratios. You're not going to finance furniture for your new living room, buy a boat for your new garage, or do anything like that.
Or get like a Kohl's, credit card to save 20% on a purchase for $20 or something, right?
Right. That's the joke, right? It is, you opened a Kohl's card to save 20%, and now you can't buy the house and you lost 10 grand in earnest money. So, yeah, so you're going to set that expectation up front, because if they show up to closing in a Cadillac, you're going to be really upset in about an hour. Right. So yeah, let them know that. Their lender should be telling that along the way, but it's important that you let them know that too. The more they hear it, the better it's going to sink in, because they're hearing a lot of stuff from a lot of different people, their friends, their family. their relative who's like their long lost cousin in Delaware who got their license yesterday. So make sure they're hearing it from you. So your financial contingency, typically it's 21 days. Sometimes it's 14 if you need a stronger offer. Sometimes waive it if you feel like your buyer is really, really strong. But the purpose of that is to be able to get your earnest money back in the event you want to buy the house. And let's say you co-signed on your sister's student loan and now you can't. The lender is going to send you a denial letter and say, we want to issue you this loan, but we can't. So as long as you have this letter that you can give to the sellers within your financial contingency period, that earnest money is refundable. So your job is to safeguard earnest money to the best of your ability while you guys are under contract, right? After due diligence, how can I protect the earnest money? The other way to do that, your appraisal contingency, this is when you have a bank send a third-party appraiser out to the house to make sure that the house is valued at least what you're under contract for. Let's say you're under contract at 450 and the house appraisal comes back at 425, bank's only lending 425. That's it. So now you've got to figure out with the buyer and the seller, this $25,000 delta, how are we going to make it up? Ideally, the seller is going to reduce to fair market value. In this market, that's not going to happen. So you want to set that expectation again with your buyer up front. This is the purpose of the appraisal contingency. I want to make sure you're not upside down in your house. If you end up upside down in your house before you close, you're coming out of pocket $25,000, you're well on your way to a short sale. So it's not necessarily what people want to hear when you end up in a low appraisal. Typically, if we end up in a low appraisal and the seller is unwilling to negotiate and we're way, way off, I tell my buyer, keep looking. You can get your earnest money back because we're within our appraisal contingency and it's appraisal related that we're terminating. And let's keep looking and find another one. Bill, you look like you're about to ask me a question.
Oh, I was just, it broke up for a second. So I was praying that it would come back quickly. Now it looks like you're frozen. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, I've got you. Can you see me?
Yeah. So one thing that I've seen so far is that, can you guys hear me now? One thing that I've heard is it sounds like you're saying a script, right? A script is just simply the same thing that you say over and over and over again. So the way you've described those contingencies and the way that you've described how you set expectations with a consumer is basically the same over and over again. And first of all, does it sound like she has, she's trying to sell anyone on anything, or does it come from an educational background or kind of an area of contribution because she wants the person to be protected, right? She wants the person to buy the home for a reasonable price so that they call her in 5 years when they want to sell it, right? If the person feels like they were swindled, Paige is not going to get a call back when they realize the home isn't the one for them, right?
Yeah. And you know, Bill, I'll say my best referral sources are the transactions that went south. The best transactions
Yeah,
that
isn't
I
that
have are my
interesting?
worst.
I find the same thing.
Yeah, because they want to see, look, anybody can do great when everything's great. But when the shit hits the fan, that's when you realize who has my back, right? How did she handle this when things went sour? How did she handle this? How was I protected? What did she do? How would other people have handled that? How do I feel? People aren't going to remember what you said. They're going to remember how you made them feel. So the whole way you want to make them feel good. And I have found that the transactions, and I have one lady, I put her under contract 4 or 5 times, and she bought like the 5th or 6th house that we ended up under contract on. And the whole time, just doesn't feel right. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. And I was probably more patient than
What are you doing to win when there's 90 other offers?
So we lost, but when there was 22 other offers, we won waiving our financial contingency. We did a 9-day appraisal contingency. We did $12,000 above asking, and as is stipulation, we had a 4-day due diligence period. We did our down payment as an earnest money, and we wrote a love letter.
Wow. It's a crazy market out there, isn't it? What else do you do, Paige, in terms of expectation setting or explaining those contingencies and making sure they know? We always talk about, we have to let our clients know what we're doing for them, right? Especially in this type of environment. Let's say, for example, you're my seller. Okay, we talk once to book the appointment. Then you invite me into your home and I list your property. Then I call you, then it goes under contract immediately, right? And I call you and we resolve the inspection issues, which is probably going to be pretty quick because we're not going to agree to much anyway, right? And then I call you and say, hey, the home appraised, we're good there. And then I show up at the closing and I make 15 grand and you're like, what the hell else did he do? You see what I'm saying? Right. So like, if you don't tell your consumer, your customer, what you're doing for them more often than you think is probably necessary, you leave that closing table and the client is like, I think they're overpaid, right? I mean, I've gotten like, I can think of 3 different clients where I helped the client, these were buyers. And on my way home from the closing, they called me and said, how much of that money do you get to keep? I think I might want to be in real estate. What they were telling me is they didn't think I earned it.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say about every couple days, every 3 or 4 days, at least once a week, I follow up. And, you know, even if I have nothing to say, I just say, hey, just wanted to check in on you, see how you're feeling. Hey, just wanted to check in on you. How's everything going? By the way, everything, you know, I talked to the lender. It's all looking really smooth on the back end. Hey, I talked to the buyer. Doing great. They're ready to move in. Nothing to have cold feet about. You're in really good shape. You look good. Hey, by the way, do you need movers? How's it going? Do you need someone for, you know, patching and painting your new home? I saw this today and I thought of you, even if it's like a meme or something. I'll send it to them just so that they know that they're still top of mind for me. When we get to, there are certain things that I do along the way too, to try to make them feel special. My thing is trying to provide a luxury experience at every price point. So whether you're buying a $20,000 piece of land or you're buying a $2 million house in Chastain Park, I want you to feel like your business is really important to me. So I find that a lot of agents, they'll like, it's day of closing, it's an hour before, they're like, oh man, I got this closing, I didn't buy anything for it, and I guess I got to give them something. So like run to Kroger, they buy a bottle of wine, right? So, and it's obligatory at this point, right? They get there and they realize their client doesn't even drink. They're in AA. So what
or like the other client buys a gift or like the lender buys a gift and you're like, oh no, I didn't buy one here.
Right. So what I started doing along the way, so we meet, I send them a thank you card and very professional. It's a Keller Williams stationery gift card in there. Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to the opportunity to win your business or to earn your business, because it's not a given that you're going to get it. And if you have that sense of entitlement, they're not going to want to give it to you. They're going to want to give it to the next person. So knowing that you're working for them and that you're trying to earn their business is going to be key. And it's nice. And, you know, I sent it with a
That's great. That's exactly the phrase I used. Earn the responsibility or earn the opportunity. I've probably said that 4 million times.
Absolutely. And I wax seal
Love
it.
that. Any questions?
So once, you know, so once we get through that, once you get under contract and your due diligence contingency is lifted, whether you're a buyer or a seller, I send you cookies through Tiff Streets. Congratulations on your sweet new deal. Warm wishes. Once we get to the closing table, Tiffany's. This is Tiffany's. You can get a business account with them. So you get 10 or 15% off whatever you're buying, as long as it's not gold or diamonds. They have wine glasses, 25 bucks a piece. Comes in a ginormous blue bag and a ginormous blue box. And it's going to have such good presentation at the closing table. And they're going to be so impressed every time. 50 bucks, but it looks amazing.
Love that. Love that. What else about the contract to close process is overlooked maybe? And where else do you deliver a luxury experience at all price points during that phase?
Yeah, you know, again, just keeping up with them and letting them know what's going on. I've got a system, I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to send it to you, Bill, but it'll pull all of the market inventory and tell you how many showings and viewings you've gotten online on different platforms like Realtor.com, Zillow, the MLS. I send them reverse prospecting. I try to check in every week and say, hey, just wanted to let you know, even though we're under contract, your property is still performing really, really, really well online. So if something happens and for whatever reason we got to go back on the market, you're going to do great. We're still going to find another buyer. You're in good shape. And here's how many views we've gotten today. Something like that, I think, is really helpful for the people to know that even though you're under contract, you're still working.
That's a great point. I really like that. Who else has a thought or question for Paige?
All right, cool.
We got a top performer here. She's happy to answer any questions you want.
I don't have a question, but I have a thought. Great information as a person that's transitioning from a different career. I just like what you said about being patient and persevering, because I think a lot of us are going to go through that because we are in a time when things happen overnight. So I just really appreciate that part. So thanks for everything.
Absolutely.
I really, I came from right out of school, I went into real estate. So I never had an opportunity to work in a corporate environment. And I really admire everyone who has the courage to go from a 9-to-5 into something that's an eat what you kill. You have so much more potential being in real estate than you do being in a 9-to-5. I never thought that I would make the kind of money that I'm making, especially at my age, ever. Like I make more than anyone in my family. I come from a family of engineers, and the reason is because I had the courage to go into this field, and then I was able to stick with it as well. So again, like coming from that transition, just stay with it. And it's discouraging at times, but that's why you have your big why, and you just keep going back to it and you say, why am I doing this? Because I want to do this. And why do I want to do that? Because I want to do that. And get really, really, really granular with your big why. So when you're having those rough days, you know why you're doing this. And sometimes, take the day off. If you're feeling like a little discouraged, maybe I do want to go back to my 9-to-5, maybe you just need a day off and to recharge.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Paige. Why do you do this? What is your big why?
Oh gosh. Well, so I'm going through that right now. Like I said, I was trying to figure that out with Aubrey. And originally my big why was to be financially independent. And now I'm there, and my big why is to get into coaching and to helping people. So I coach Little League soccer. I love being around kids. I love helping people where I can. And I think that being able to do that in an environment where it's still real estate is incredible. And again, just going back to helping people, that's why I'm in real estate. It's not because I like buying or selling houses. I could care less about a house. It's because I like helping people and the feeling that I get of accomplishment when we go to the closing table and they're buying a house that they never thought they could buy. Maybe they're the first time home buyers in their family. No one's ever bought a house in their family before. And they're
Right.
able to do that.
That's awesome. There's one, we actually have a similar why, right? To help people build wealth and get the excitement and the pleasure of helping people do things they never expected to do. One thing that, which is, it's in the real estate space a little bit, and it's in the teaching space a little bit, and it's in the financial space a little bit, is KW Kids Care or Kids Can. Are you familiar with that?
No.
All right, let's huddle afterwards, because it's basically a course that Gary, it's kind of like Quantum Leap for kids. And you go into, you can give like private seminars, if you will, that are teaching kids about financial literacy and about thinking big and some of the concepts that we know from the 6 personal perspectives and Quantum Leap. And it kind of marries a lot of what you're talking about, and it has an educational background. It's maybe something you want to check out.
Yeah, super cool. On the contract to close, I know that was a lot of information very, very quickly. What I've started doing actually is YouTube videos. I don't know if y'all are doing YouTube videos or not, but so you don't have to keep repeating yourself a lot. It's been amazing. So I've got one. Oh, go ahead.
What would an example of that be? Like, hey, here's the due diligence. Hey, Karen, here's what you can expect from the due diligence period.
Yeah, because I would say the biggest confusion that I get from people, and I had this conversation twice already today with 2 of my buyers, is what's the difference between an appraisal and due diligence? Or now I'm under contract, what's the contract to close process? So instead of having the same conversation 50 times with the same person and they're still not getting it, maybe send them a YouTube video of you explaining it. So you can explain it to them on the phone. you can send them an email that says, hey, this is the home buyer or the home seller roadmap. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're at right now. And by the way, here's a YouTube video. So if you need to hear me explain it again, it's right here. You can click on this link. It's the same script.
I love that. I love that. What have you made any significant changes to your business with respect to COVID? How are you? It doesn't seem like you let COVID. You're definitely not becoming a victim of COVID. You have used it to your benefit. What would you say the biggest adjustment you made was?
I haven't. It's pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is more care calls. Hey, how's it going? But now with everybody kind of going back to normal, COVID's still there, but people don't seem to care as much. Care calls don't really seem to be effective unless it's with my older clients that are still being very, very cautious. Most of my clients are first-time home buyers though, or first-time home sellers, so it's not as impactful to my business.
Right. Well, I definitely want to be respectful of your time today, Paige. Is there any other questions that anyone has? And then we'll send Paige off for the rest of her afternoon.
I do have a quick question for Paige.
Go ahead.
And thanks for being here. Going back to when you're talking about the appraisal contingency, and sometimes it's just, walk away. I might have something coming up soon for my buyer client. It's we found a great house. It's beautiful. It's priced very well, and he can, he's comfortable to go higher. But I know this thing is going to get a lot of attention coming up this weekend. So what's that point? How high should I go, with this offer when that might, appraise for less? But I know it's going to get so much attention this weekend, being beautiful, being only a couple of years old, being priced right. I mean, this thing's going to get a lot of attention. So I want to go in, with a very nice offer, probably above, but not too much above. Like, what do you think for this?
So Travis, here's the conversation that you probably want to have with your buyer, right? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we've got really, really limited inventory. And as much as I want to tell you we're guaranteed to get this house, the real reality is that we've got a lot of competition. So we need to go in as strong as possible. And there are a couple things that we can do to strengthen our offer to make it a little bit more attractive than some of our competition. So some of the things that we can do is writing a very aggressive due diligence period. So if an average due diligence period is 7 to 10 days, perhaps we write it for 4 or 5 days, probably 4, right? 3 or 4 days would be great if we can. Before I do that, I always contact my home inspector and say, hey, look, I've got this property, I'm writing an offer on it. If you have any availability coming up in the next 3 business days, counting maybe tomorrow, the next day, if you would hold that for me, that'd be great. So I can go back to my buyer and say, 3 days for due diligence is aggressive, but don't worry, because I'm already holding Wednesday at 3 p.m. for a home inspection to make sure that we're good there. And then I would probably add a stipulation that says, even though I have the right to inspect, I'm not going to ask for anything. So it's an as-is sale. And the reason for that, and I tell my buyers, is look, if you're going to go above asking anyway, a couple $1,000s, what's a couple $100s in fixing a GCFI outlet, or, maybe getting a new hot water heater? There are a few things that are going to come up on your home inspection. That's the purpose of having a home inspection. But understand that if you love this home, a few $100 shouldn't be the difference between making it or breaking it once you're in due diligence.
Right. And if there's a bunch of
under
that are
contract
identified, then you just leave
your financial contingency. Do what?
I was saying, like, if you put in, hey, I don't plan to ask for anything, yet there's so much stuff there that caused the buyer to not want to move forward, then they just leave the deal.
And they keep their earnest money. And here's the thing too, Travis, so I've had situations where I've had an as-is stipulation, and this is what I advised my buyer about an hour ago, is we're going to write this as is, but understand if they come back and there's a $20,000 foundation issue that needs to be addressed, we can go back to the sellers and say, this wasn't in your seller's disclosure. Did you know about this? And if they say, we had no idea, we can go, okay, well, we didn't want to ask for anything, but it wasn't in the disclosures. We really love the house and we want to move forward with it. The only way we can do that is if you fix this. And maybe they're willing to fix it and make it work. Because if they're not, now they know about it, and that problem's got to go in their seller's disclosure. So all the other buyers that are coming in, they're going to know about it too. And it's going to impact the kind of offers that they're going to get.
Right. They may as well fix it for you. They may as well fix it for you. Otherwise, they're going to have to tell the next guy about it.
Exactly. So I would write it 4-day due diligence. I'd write it with an as-is stipulation. I'd have my buyer submit all of their documents into the lender ahead of time and ask my lender, how confident do you feel in their ability to close? If he goes, they're going to close without a shadow of a doubt, they've got this, they're an 800 plus credit score and their debt to income is minimal, then I'm probably going to waive their financial contingency. But before I do that, I'm going to go to my buyer and say, this is something that I want to do, but understand this is the risk involved. And the risk is your earnest money. So make sure that during this period, you're not buying or selling your furniture or buying a boat or doing anything that's going to impact your credit in a negative way. Don't make any large purchases.
He does, and he's rock solid. The only thing I would be worried about is that with so many offers that the appraisal would come back under.
So you can do a rush on your appraisal. Talk to your lender, but I know that my lender can get the appraisal back in 5 days with a rush. A rush fee is usually $150. So $150, that's nothing in the grand scheme of things. Put a rush on it. Again, talk to your lender first because lenders are running differently, but appraisers are not as busy as they used to be. So typically 3 business days, so I can get it back in like 5 normal days. And then you can have a stipulation that says, hey, we're willing to go $15,000 or $10,000 over the appraised value in the event the appraisal comes in low. That way you're setting the expectation for all parties up front. The seller knows it appraises low, at least I'm going to get a little bit more. The buyer knows if it appraises low, I'm going to come out of pocket and it's going to be X amount. But I wouldn't waive my appraisal contingency. A lot of people are doing that right now. I disagree with that. I wouldn't. And because you're really putting your person at risk for a lawsuit or to lose their earnest money.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Paige, this has been wonderful. I've learned a lot about you and the business that you've built is super admirable. Thank you so much for spending some time preparing for today and investing your time with us today. And if there is ever an open house or a shadow opportunity or any of that kind of thing that you have, if you've got an home inspection that somebody in the group can shadow, or you need help, manning an open house or something like that, or hosting one, I can find a match for you in mere moments. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. And my office is right down the hall. I'm not in as much as I'd like to be because again, I live in Buckhead, so it's a little bit of a trek. But I'm always amenable by a phone call. So if you've got any questions, I know my documents, my forms very, very well. The other day I was driving down the highway and helped somebody fill out a listing agreement. If you need anything, don't guess on those forms because that can hurt you in the long run. Feel free to give me a call.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. I'll post Paige's contact information in the chat a little bit later. Paige, thank you so much for your time today. Have a wonderful weekend and appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you, Paige.
Okay.